Hey everybody, Jason here with the Landlord Launch, and today we're going to be talking about how to collect rent from a tenant who has moved out and still owes you money. I often refer to this as bad debt, so throughout the video, if you hear me talking about bad debt, that is what I'm talking about. So first and foremost, you have the ability when somebody moves out to, of course, charge their security deposit. Make sure that you do their deposit reconciliation or settlement agreement or whatever you call it. Make sure to have that done in the time frame that your state tells you have to have it done in, whether it's 14 days or 30 days or whatever it is. Make sure to itemize the charges, the damages, the rents, the late fees, whatever it is on there, and get that delivered to them in the required amount of time. That way you can capture that security deposit. By not doing that, most states will say if you don't do that in that certain period of time, then you have to give them back their deposit. And usually the past tenant has the ability to come after you for damages, which state by state, but I know like at least in some of the states I've worked at, it's 1.5 times. So not only were they able to get their deposit back, but then they could sue me for an additional 1.5 times that deposit. So if it's $1,000, I'd have to give them $1,000, and then they can come after me for additional 1.5 times or $1,500. So it's important to get that back to them. That way you can recoup some of your funds and that you don't get sued for damages and withholding that inappropriately. So from there, let's say that they still owe a balance. Options get limited from there. Collections are very difficult for that scenario with landlords, and the courts are making it even more difficult in a lot of cases. Same with the credit reporting agencies. I think credit reporting agencies, I don't remember when, but over the last couple of years, they've changed the way that they report some of this stuff. So like judgments are not necessarily reported directly on the credit report itself. You can still find them through public search records or searching the public records, which most of your screening companies these days do. So you'll be able to see that judgment for evictions and any monies owed, things along those lines. But they don't show up directly on the credit report anymore for all the major ones that I'm aware of, at least. There's even courts kind of going a little off subject here. But even on the screening records, there's even courts these days where they are allowing the eviction to be kind of hidden, restricted from the record, so that other landlords can't see the eviction, because it impairs that tenant's ability to obtain future housing, which I thought was kind of the whole point of it. But having said that, the point is that things aren't getting any easier in terms of that bad debt collections and evictions and seeing people who have stiffed other landlords. So your first step, if somebody owes you money, the first step is to try to set up a payment arrangement with them, if at all possible. Don't The goal here is to collect money. If this goes over to a collection agency, which we'll talk about, you're going to lose 40 to 60% right off the top anyway, if you collect anything. So the more you collect, the better off you are. So if you can set up a payment arrangement, even if it's something that seems a lot lower than you would like, so let's just say they owe $1,000, rather than hitting them for $300 or $400 a month, especially if they're having financial problems, even collecting $50 a month is a win. This allows you to get updated information, get new phone numbers, forwarding addresses, anything else like that. If you can set up a payment arrangement, get it in writing, talk to them, say, hey, listen, you owe this money. I don't want to do this other stuff, but I want to make it reasonable for you. If you can form that relationship, you're far more likely to get paid. Even if they only pay half of it, you're still better off than none. So do what you can to set up a payment arrangement if at all possible. I do understand that in a lot of these cases, there isn't a great relationship there if that money's owed. So that's going to be difficult, but that's your first step. If that cannot happen, if you have to go through an eviction, If you have to go after them financially, then what you're going to want to do is get a judgment. And you can get a judgment for possession, and you can get a judgment for monies owed from the court. Sometimes they happen at the same time. Some courts are separate proceedings. You're going to have to do a little research in your area and figure out, what that looks like for you. But get your judgment first and foremost, because what that does is gives you the ability to collect. If you decide you want to go after and try to do the garnishment thing and try to capture some of those funds like that, you have to have a judgment in place. But more importantly, in my opinion, is that it gets it on their record so that it prevents them from getting into other homes as easily if they try to rent from somebody else. So it's landlords looking out for landlords. Plus, one of the things I do as when I screen, if I find an old judgment, if they meet all my other criteria and they have a judgment from 3 or 5 years ago where they owe a certain amount of money, one of the things I'll do is I'll give them a conditional approval as long as they pay off the other landlord and get me a proof of payment. So in that respect, trying to help landlords out that way. And if they ran into problems before and now they're on a better path, or better job, better situation, and that was a mistake that they're trying to make right, I give them the opportunity to make it right. If they do that, then I'll go on and give them a chance to rent from my home. But I would never know if it's not on their record. So that's the reasons why I say get that judgment that in place. Now, one of the things that you can do on judgments is that if you are able to track down where they work, you can garnish their wages. Again, it's another court proceeding you have to go through to get that enforced. You may even be able to garnish their bank accounts if they have any monies in there, but again, you have to be able to find their bank accounts, and this is where skip tracing comes in and really trying to track that stuff down, which is it's difficult. That's why collection agencies have a job, is because they're very good at doing this stuff. But if you can do it, if you're willing to put the footwork in and track that stuff down, then by all means do it. Get that judgment in place, and then find out where their assets are, where their employers are, and then see if you can go legally attached to those and capture some of your money. The other option that I like to talk about is to hire a debt collection agency. If you can't set up that payment agreement, the likeliness of you capturing that money back at all is very, very slim. To put yourself in the best position to capture money, in my opinion, is to get it over to a collection agency. And the sooner the better, because the longer that debt goes without them working on it, the more difficult it is for them to collect on it. The information goes dry, and it's just more difficult. And they just have a higher percentage of success the sooner you get it over to them. And yes, they're going to take 40 to 60 months, but or 40 to 60% of whatever that debt is, but you're still getting a remainder of that. And the other thing I really like about using a collection agency is that they can take that debt and they can report it to the credit bureaus as well. So that now not only is the garnishment on there, but that debt is on there as well, which makes it easier for other landlords to see. And with my property management company, a majority of the bad debt payments that we received were from 2 years, people that lived with us at least 2 years before and longer, who had decided they wanted to clean up their credit. They needed to buy a house, or they needed to re-rent, and they were in a different situation, but they could not make those purchases because this stuff was on their credit report. So they would then get in contact with the collection agency and work out some sort of an agreement, and then we would start receiving payments, whether monthly or settlements or whatever the case may be. Again, it was a couple years later, but at least we got some of that money back. And that's where a majority of my bad debt collection money came from as a property management company. Of course, we couldn't, is there something to be said for landlords that have the time to go run them down and try to do the judgment and the garnishment thing? Yeah, if you have the time to do that. But at the scale that we were working at, it didn't make any sense whatsoever to do it that way. So the collection agency was always the best option, and it produced results. Now, when I say produced results, I will say that we probably only captured, out of everybody that had the bad debt, and probably only captured maybe 15 or 20% of those people. And out of the 15 or 20% of the people that owed us money that did end up paying it back, again, probably only got about 50% of it, but it was something. It's not great. It really isn't. It's very, very tough to do this. So you're going to have to take all these things in consideration and decide whether or not it's worth for you to spend your time and the frustration to go after it. And again, it may be case by case. If there's somebody that has a great job that they're never going to leave and you know that they're going to be there, then go after them. Because part of the problems with like attaching to their wages, especially for somebody, let's just say, that works at McDonald's, a very like transient type of job, they get garnished. Well, that garnishment may take such a portion of their check, they'll just quit and go find another job. They can do that very easily. And then the last thing on that is to know that some states won't even allow you to garnish certain things, like pay, or they definitely have caps on how much you can garnish, or they have caps on the total amount that can be garnished. So if there's other people in line ahead of you, you may have to wait a while before that gets enforced. So a lot of factors that don't bode very well for the landlords, but I think that the attempt is worth it, at least at some level or another, at the very least to get it on their record somewhere way or another, to make sure that they can't do this, or that makes it difficult for them to do this to another landlord, in my opinion. So that is what I have, just kind of touching on bad debt collections. Again, a lot of just, overview information for you. I hope this has helped. If you have any questions, please let me know. Other than that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you once again for watching. This is Jason with Landlord Launch, and we will see you next time.